Cheers. Oh, wow. Live streamed. Okay. So that's new. Okay. I see. So you don't even have to upload it. It just goes straight to their server and that keeps it simple. That's cool.
Yeah.
Save you steps. I love it. I got to remember that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not, I have now 22 subscribers, but they don't get notified if there's live streams. It's basically where I do my Gene Keys readings and then I can make it private so that it's not publicly accessible.
Do you do that from within Zoom? Or how do you get it to YouTube?
It just does it automatically.
Oh,
But
wow.
that's
Push a button. You push a button. Either that or I could record it to the cloud and then upload it, and that's just a lot of hassle.
that's an app association that you made on the back end. That's not a normal feature of Zoom. I think that's the original
No,
question.
it's a normal feature of whatever level of Zoom I have, which isn't very
Really?
expensive.
Okay, because I don't know, when I hit record, it doesn't give me that option, but okay, whatever. Geeking out, sorry, man.
Welcome, everyone. We're recording it just for those that aren't here and want to join us in the near future. Oh, he changed his name. He's no longer a hash brown. Is everybody here in the Venus? Is anyone not doing the Venus? Okay, you guys are all quiet.
Yes, I'll come down off my cloud for a minute. I
Welcome.
haven't been able to connect for a few sessions with you guys, and I wanted to get back, but I have a confession. I become addicted to a live stream of Mother Mira where she opens her eyes sometimes between 11 and 11:30. I was just waiting for her to open her eyes so that I could come talk to you guys. Yeah, this is part of my contemplation of the relationship between me and technology, you see, because I can actually have a small Zoom window in the corner of a live stream while I'm looking in the eyes of the Divine Mother. So it's pretty awesome.
Oh. Well, just, we don't have any rules here, and it doesn't quite run the same as like a normal Gene Keys community call or group call. We kind of go popcorn. If someone is in need of an extra time, just ask for it. If you need support or feedback, you're welcome to ask for it. Doesn't mean you'll get it, but other than that, it's just a group of love and support. And I'm pretty sure everybody's in the Venus. George and I just finished doing the 59th, also in a men's Delta that did the 59th Gene Key. So it's a little refreshing to move into the attraction sphere and out of purpose. Had a lot of intenseness of the 59th personally. I guess since I'm talking, I'll check in. This morning I was on the call and I forgot his name. Who's the guy from Australia?
Mark Bentley.
Crocodile Dundee.
Yes. And he picked my fifth line in the attraction field as the topic to discuss, which is my I made my own little paper so I can take notes, but the 23rd, the fifth line, and it was friggin' awesome. You know, I just fucking nailed it. And I knew he knew it was me, so. Um, I think, you know, I'm sustaining doing both the Venus and the Delta. And in the future, I want to create or initiate a group that is sort of like an introductory place for men, not only those people in the Gene Keys, but people who aren't in the Gene Keys, and really gear it towards the art of contemplation. Phil is going to help me co-host this. We're still have to kind of put together the whole thing. And something I want to ask, someone commented to me today on one of the graphics I did that I'm not supposed to use the Gene Keys logo in an ad about the art of contemplation. And I was kind of like, what? So I'm going to have to go back.
Actually, I seen that, Tom, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up so we could talk about that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go look into the guide's marketing material, or if you guys
Can you share a screen and show me the image? Because there
okay.
are certain ones that were encouraged. Most of them were encouraged to use as guides, but generally the 64 dots is reserved for Gene Keys.
That's what it was, the 64
Yep.
dots, and it says Gene Keys.
Yep.
Okay.
So that one's reserved for Gene Keys Limited or publishing, and the guides logo is a great one, or any of the, like, you could use the Art of Contemplation one or
Okay.
anything like that. Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Yeah, okay, because I didn't, yeah, I get you now. It's more about the publishing.
If you
All right.
go on the affiliates page now, there's the resources there as well, and you can see there's literally every other logo that you could think of basically in Gene Keys, just not that.
Powering on.
Not the 64
Ready to
dots.
pair.
Just your same.
Yeah, Elijah just redid that. So now it's searchable. There's like a huge database. It's really, it's extensive because it's been kind of a nightmare to figure out which ones go where and all this stuff. And so now Elijah just redid the guides affiliates stuff. So there's, well, it should be pretty cool.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll come back more with later and just kind of open it up. Who feels something percolating?
Well, let the percolate happen. It's been happening really big in my life this month. Tom said, talked about the 59. It's my 11th Delta experience in conjunction with the, Venus. And it's been really nice to get fed by both, I guess you can say, and just let these things work themselves out, because I keep on having, like, as I always share, magical experiences happen every day. And you know how vulnerable I am when I show up here and start sharing about, like, my relationships and just everything that's happening in my life. And I just want to say that in purifying my purpose, I started to realize, or just become aware of, where I was being projected on, like in other words, where I'm being projected on from, say, let's just say from a line 5 perspective, like someone that is not really, into the gene keys or conscious, a lot of times can be a little bit like out in left field when it comes to like life, because of the patterning that may have been, part of their upbringing in my own, and so this purity purpose really came down to, I have a line 3 in my purpose 33.3, the clarity of my mental field and the ability to see what I wanted and what was being projected on me as something that I should want. And it really helped me to all of a sudden just feel more coherence within my own experience and make some big changes and big moves that are in process right now, but at the same time being nice to those that may be ending relationships with, to sort of work it out in a peaceful way, but still go my separate way, in my own adventurous way. So Matthew, that card you pulled last night was a perfect card. The Matthew pulled the 35th gene key because he was doing his hummingbird thing. And I says, I'm just going to surrender to the present moment. And Matt, Hummy, pull me a card, and couldn't have been more better. The 35 is the program partner to the 5th that we're in right now. And I have the 5 in my EQ. So it's like that program partner. I always look at, everything I can to, get into this, just to sort of penetrate into the knowing and then the unknown, when it comes to obviously this transmission of the gene keys, and then just use my life experience as the cauldron. And it's just been so profound. Saturday, when I had this awareness really big, for some reason, I'm in my delta started from the 2nd position. So I'd never went back and listened to, and I was trying to follow all the positions with the correlating sacred seal. And I never listened to the 2nd seal. And when I went and listened to it, I had a feather in my cap, and I knew that seagull feather was, it's the 39th gene key of liberation. And I felt like, oh, this just feels like Liberation Day. And as I was walking, I was doing like a walking in the 2nd sacred seal meditation. And when I came back, and I was just about finished with that seal, I seen this little crystal on the ground, and I just picked it up and I put it in my pocket. And when I got back to the house, I looked at my hat and the feather was gone. And I was like, I traded that feather for a stone. And it was like, liberation. I could just feel it like permeating my cells. Like, now like it's gone, and I don't know where it's at. I'm not going to look for it. It's my symbol of liberation. And, if I was to look at that 17 is the programming partner to my culture. If I was to look further into other areas, it's my Chiron. It's just some different things about it that really like brought it into this, right into my belly, and just made me feel like this expansive feeling that everything is just perfect the way it is, and just really to continue to surrender to each moment, without feeling like I need to do anything to be different for anybody, anywhere, and just be me. So thank you for listening to me. And that's a piece of probably what I could share, but it's real. This world is a setup. And I tell you, it's a gene key setup when you get into those. It becomes a gene key setup, and like, so Richard said the gene keys will take you all the way, and I'm just here to be a witness to that. The gene keys will take you all the way.
Could share next. Yeah, the Venus is every time there's something new, isn't there? So I was relating to what you were saying there, George. And it was interesting in the hosting of Venus this time, and my co-host and I were meeting up prior to our sessions, and we were just trusting that there was something that brought the two of us together, right, in the co-hosting space, because it's just, the synchronicities are everywhere. And so she has the 42nd gene key as her purpose, and I have the 42nd gene key in my chart, and so that really came up. But there was also this kind of common theme that we were working through that she kind of brought to the awareness of the group, is that I've so often been like the outsider and doing things my own way, right? A little bit, I carry that 49th gene key twice. So it's like a little bit of the, yeah, I've got my teachers and my guides and things like that, but there's that, this gene keys community and the work of Richard and people like Tan Mayo that are just, there's a deeper sense of trust for me there than there has been in previous spaces and places. And, I've literally escaped from cultish kind of situations. And so last week, we were talking and we were saying, we're not concerned about all the people that are showing up here. It's that we're really allowing ourselves to embody this teamwork piece coming into this group together. And it was actually more about the presence of people like Tan Mayo showed up, right? And it was actually, that was where our growth was for both of us. It was to be in the presence of somebody we would consider to be the authority, as it were, and trusting that we weren't just going to be cut to pieces afterwards, which both of us had kind of experienced in the past. And so that in itself was like our deepest surrendering, as it were. And it was so interesting because during the call, when everyone was in the breakout rooms, I was just inspired to check the transits of the day. And I noticed that the moon was also in 42.1. So her purpose was 42.1. My relating sphere is 42.1. And we were sitting in the influence of the moon was the 42.1. And that's like when George was just saying that about the gene keys work us. That's like, we didn't coordinate and say, oh, let's do it when the moon's in 42.1. This was the gene keys, saying this is when it's going to be. This is when it's going to be hosted. And so there've been lots of opportunities this week, especially. I'm contemplating in the attraction spheres, this 55th gene key is my attraction sphere. So this freedom. And yesterday I was working with a group of people first thing in the morning. And we were contemplating prosperity, and especially together, looking at the two keys in the codon ring of prosperity, which are versatility and synergy. And I actually just pulled a card. Because I was blank on what to share. And so I just said, okay, let's let the cards kind of give me some direction. And I just pulled the 16th. So I was like, okay, we'll go with this, because this was my experience yesterday, is that we sat in the depth of the contemplation of it. And I just said to everybody, we haven't given you all the answers here. If anything, there's just been an activation of these keys in our awareness, and we can just be on the lookout for it in our lives now. And so when I finished that call, I ended up jumping onto the Dream Arc call. And the flow was just there. It was just the same, like, Rosie Aronson played a video of a friend of hers and this work with permaculture and sustainability, which is all really the essence of the gift of versatility, right? Creating sustainable, sustainable futures for ourselves. And then there is the synergy, the teamwork. In fact, the other two cards fell out, by the way. And the other card was the 44, which was the card that Richard pulled for the group in the Dream Arc yesterday. So I know it all connects into this, and this teamwork theme and this synergy theme. And also stepping in, like I stepped into a room, it was kind of comical actually. I ended up in a room by myself with an AI bot. I was like, okay, I'm in a breakout room with an AI bot. What's this about? Like, and so I eventually was like, well, it's not talking to me. It's just listening to me and transcribing me because I know what kind of AI it is. And so I hopped out of the room, and I ended up in the room, and so there was just Rosie, Tameo, and Yasko. And I texted Jesse actually before I jumped out of the room, and I just said, hey, I'm in this room alone with an AI bot. And I didn't check my phone after that. And then I was in mid-conversation with Richard and Yasko, and suddenly I get hopped again. I'm like, what's going on? Because it wasn't Yasko that had moved me. And I ended up in this group, and we only had 20 minutes, and the first person took 12 minutes by themselves. So I was like, okay, I'm responding to what I'm feeling is this dominance, this dominant talking, this dominant voice right here, which is the shadow of the 45. And so I was just noticing my response and reaction to it. Just like there was this part of me, I guess it was the 55, this is unfair. The 55 victim, like, where's the fairness? Everybody, there's 3 of us here and you've taken up 12 minutes. And I wasn't quite that vocal in my mind. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it was just how quick it came to life. Those 2 gene keys, the 45th gene key from dominance to synergy, the 16th gene key from indifference to versatility, and to step into a room and to witness that. One of the funny things about, as I was thinking about the teamwork, it takes me to my culture sphere a lot of times, which is my engagement with community and connection with community. And so I found it kind of funny that the first place I ended up was alone in a room with a bot. And the dilemma of the 12th gene key is aloneness. And it was just kind of interesting. And then to be moved on into another group and experiencing, it was just like, even in this moving around and this seemingly random things happening, it wasn't, just to be able to see the order within the disorder, I guess. And it just, to me, it was like really encapsulating this whole, you contemplate it, you see it, you're gonna notice it. You can't help but notice it in life. And I'm still on this journey with the 55, obviously. But just noticing the subtle ways in which, sometimes subtle and sometimes loud ways in which that the victim of the 55 is saying how unfair things are. And then the freedom that comes with, just allowing for that moment to be what it is. And, rather than reacting to the person who seems to be dominating the situation, I was just noticing what was going on inside of me. And there was just a little bit more freedom experienced through that. And yeah, I think I just was kind of echoing there really what George was saying, is just the aliveness of this and how life gives us exactly what we need, but also if we've turned our attention to some of this, it just like, it brings it to life. So this Venus sequence has been squeezing me in a different way. I think part of because of the roles I'm playing in it for the first time, but also, in, just other ways as well. So I think that's all. As who is it who says, is it Jesse that says it? I'm not complete, but I'm complete for now. So thank you.
Maybe I can tag into this. Thanks, Matthew. So you guys all know this story, you know most of my stories. But last time when we were doing the Venus, you know, I didn't, well, even when I started the Gene Keys, I didn't know the time of my birth, right? So I went through and looked at different times and I asked my oldest brother, he's 15 years older than I am, and obviously my birth didn't make much of an impression on him at 15, because he said, well, no, I don't remember when you were born, but I can't imagine mom not having kids in the middle of the night. So I picked 12 a.m. to be my time. Well, that gave me a 22.6 in my attractor field, right? And then what I learned today is that the 36 is the next key that fires up. And so it goes through the 36. And as we went through the Venus sequence, you know, looking at the story, I tried to get back to the stories of from 0 to 21. So I did a lot of work on my timeline and really built my timeline for all my years going back. And in doing that, it excited my family and pulled them into these stories. My oldest brother started clearing out the house and all my mom and dad's stuff. And finally, about 2 weeks before the end of the Venus sequence, he found a birth card with the time, which was 2:13 in the afternoon. And that changed my attractor field, which I'd been, you know, contemplating this, the whole Venus sequence. Now it's at the end of it, changes it to a 25.1. And so what I've taken from that is that both those keys are my attractor field. And now that's what I'm trying to do now, is contemplate those and pull in the partners to those and figure out what are these four spheres, what do they mean? And then this morning, as I was working on this, thinking, oh, it's the 36 that's in between those two. What the hell does that play? So I'm playing with these gifts of, so 22 is graciousness and 25 is acceptance. And then on the other side, the 47, which is the partner of the 22, is transmutation, which is a word in my coaching that's the process that I'm doing in the coaching with people and their shadows and their traumas. And then the 46, the gift is delight. So it's these four going back. This acceptance is what I ask people to do in the coaching, is accept their shadow, accept it, love it, universal love. Moving into this delight that we can look back on our traumas and then feel the love of what they've done for us to get us to this place we are. That's the gift that's in the shadow, right? To find that gift in the shadow. And then the 36, so the city of the 36 is compassion, which that self-compassion is totally what that coaching is all about. So I'm just laying in there, and as you were talking, Matthew and George, that idea that the Gene Keys kind of spins this reality in front of us, spins what we need to look at, spins what we need to learn about in order to move forward. And it just continually does that. It constantly takes me back to either there's no such thing as miracles or everything's a miracle. And if everything's a miracle, what is this miracle I'm looking at right now on my screen? Right? How did this all come together? How did this come together? So that's where I'm at. Oh, I guess the other thing is with my Delta group then, we've done 2 deltas together. And we're all in the Venus sequence. And so we're doing the 7 sacred seals. And so I'm in the 63 with that. And this idea of truth, trying to get, what is this truth? And so I see that in this weaving, right? This weaving, the universe conspiring to make us move forward, right? So yeah, that's me today. Thank you.
Chris, I'd like to follow on from there. You're saying, what's the miracle of this in front of me, this screen? And I was kind of feeling that miracle when I came on, because I don't know, it's been a tough few days in many ways, and yeah, I've just been finding kind of gratitude in various different things, and seeing a theme that you sort of pointed to, Chris, like all these injuries, all these hurts, all these places of suffering in the past, and how at their very core, at their very foundation, they've been just sort of gently moving me towards like an ultimate goal of like coming home. Or I think BRB is bathroom break, David, I think. Yeah, all of these injuries kind of moving me towards this sort of place of ultimate self-love, or love for the world. Like that's my, I'll be right back, not bathroom break. Okay. And I have that 46 in my IQ, so that seriousness has really felt hard, because I spent so much time in my mind, like the IQ just sort of taking me into all of the seriousness that is also part of the conditioning that we receive from this society. And a part of that is the black and whiteness, like this is right, this is wrong. And those injuries just felt wrong, or they felt like they made me wrong. They made a kind of wrongness of a belief that there was something wrong with me. And recently, for whatever reason, and I certainly think that Gene Keys has been playing a big role in this, and I've been feeling the activation of the delta, of Tom's delta, and both times, you know, even the supposedly broken one at the beginning that we restarted, because I started that kind of in the harmony of the higher mind, and it was pushing me to look at all of these thoughts as having at their core some like a soul of love, a soul that was built of love, like each thought having its own kind of soul, and just sort of again kind of carrying me towards this my own deepest desire. Like I want to love the world, I want to love every aspect of this world, of this life. And so some of the things that have been happening in these last few days have really, I guess, kind of tested that in many ways. And I've been feeling these waves. As I came on this call, the miracle that I felt was like this, a deep sort of sense of distance from home, and a deep sort of sense of loss of something that happened to me recently, and yet there was no need to I don't know, play to the audience. There was no need to put on an act or a role. There was just like, oh, I can just sort of sit here in quiet and just be with what was here with me, and not feel any sense of judgment from you guys. Like there was just this sense of real kind of calmness, and like I kind of feel a sense of home here. You know? Like I can just sort of relax into the arms of you, the arms of this sofa of home, or whatever. and that felt really good. That felt like a miracle. That felt like privilege. I felt a lot of gratitude for that, and definitely a lot of gratitude for this. What did you call it, Chris? This spinning or this twisting of like seeing things in a different light, seeing things through different lenses. Matthew, I think you mentioned, like, or George, like, yeah, seeing them through these sort of Gene Key lenses, and the lenses kind of encompassed the shadows. So yeah, it's not like anything profound kind of shifted, but just something very, very subtle that just kind of allowed me to pull the shadows in a little bit closer and see them in a see them in a different light. Like, oh yeah, man, you took me all of this way. You took me here. You took me to where I am now. Yeah, I really appreciated that. And I was reminded on a call early this morning about what appreciation means. It's like an increase in value, you know, in the economy and markets, it increases the value. So this kind of sense of, oh, I'm increasing the value of these shadows, and out of that, you know, the gift is there. It's already there. That's all from me. Thanks, guys.
Phil, thank you so much for hosting last Friday, the creative thing too. That was so awesome. You make me feel very creative and want to be more creative. And so I have a proposal, but I'm going to give it a time or two because I know myself. Something has connected me with the trees and the contemplation. And so would you guys like me to choose a mutual tree for us to riff off of from my Celtic tree oracles? Okay, so just don't act like a tree and leave, though.
I love when you walk away from the screen, it looks like you disappear into the tree.
Yeah, that's my version of BRB. Going to take a piss. I don't say anything though. Okay, here, let's see what happens. Let's see, we have the white poplar. I don't know how I don't speak Gaelic, but maybe you guys speak Gaelic and can pronounce that. Eadha. Eadha. I'm not really super familiar with white poplar. But the Celtic trees came up at the very end of my DreamArc Guardian ceremony, which took me 6 months to create and then 14 and a half days to complete. So that's part of my synchronicity here, but I just want to share this and then I'll just be quiet for a while and listen. White poplar corresponds with aspen. One is the one most concerned with earthly material aspects of life, of the tree Ogam. It is also concerned with finding spiritual strength and endurance to face the harsh realities that life presents us, often unexpectedly or over a long, wearing period of time. This conveys a sense of the ability to endure and conquer. Poplar has three attributes: an ability to resist and to shield, an association with speech and language, and a close relationship with the winds. Okay, well, maybe I can post the rest of it in the forum or something. And share something more personal. you know, somebody that I met, well, I've seen for years, I think, but I've never met her one-on-one. We connected in a breakout group and then had a little exchange on the Gene Keys messaging, and she asked me if I was a DreamArc contributor who had contributed some sort of expertise on the trees, and I was like, well, no, yes and no, not really, kind of, sort of. But anyway, the inquiry that she brought me made me realize that the trees are calling, and I've always had this question of where are the trees, in the DreamArc, and well, the answer is they're right where they always are. They're sitting, they're rooted in the ground, waiting for us to listen, I suppose. But they don't appear as oracles and so on. But when I was thinking about my own life, and like when I was really tearing my hair out in the worst moments of self-loathing, like, why did I take a corporate job and become a programmer? And why am I sitting in this cubicle? And this is not my life, that kind of thing. Like, that was pushing me towards, well, what are you really here for? All I got was an image of myself sitting under a tree. And so, yeah, now I got my virtual tree to sit next to. But that was just the beginning. It's like you say, life. I was thinking about, this idea of magical or not magical, synchronistic or not synchronistic. And I mean, when I really think about it honestly, life, it has to be inherently synchronistic in every possible moment, every possible aspect, except that there's a human condition or a human, I guess you could call it an ability, you call it a shadow or a gift, to completely block out the bliss of life 99% of the time, 99.99999 is statistically almost 100% of the time, right? So that these moments of synchronicity appear to be these magical things when we finally see them. Anyhow, that's my, I still got 50 seconds. Yes. So I've got, I chose the turtle, as my guardian. And the turtle just kept saying, no, not time for a ceremony. There's nothing necessary. I'm just a slow creature, And finally I got the yes. And it was the same day as the Venus sequence started. And not only was it a yes, it was like, well, yeah, you could have a 3-day ceremony. And then second day I was like, no, this is a 14-day ceremony. And I guess what really released me, I'm going to turn this off and go more than 10 more seconds. What really released me was when I was thinking about Angangak, who is the indigenous elder that I, hooked Rosie and Richard up with when they were creating the DreamArc, which got me my free ticket. He was the last, I met him as the last presenter on 3 years of full moon ceremonies that were produced by Sounds True. And so all these beautiful, like, shamanic practitioners showing their ceremonies, which I just love. But here he is, an authentic, elder from a well over 5,000-year-old tradition from Greenland. And he described his ceremony as getting up in the morning, making his coffee, grinding the beans, smelling it, like just normal stuff. And then he quoted his grandmother, life itself is a ceremony worth celebrating with a ceremony. And so that was what released me from this idea of, oh, I have to do it on a certain day in a certain way and do this and that. And I just had so much fun with it. And anyhow, so that finished, and it was all, like you say, so synchronistic. Like I couldn't have planned it to be, I could have, but I didn't plan it to be during the transit of the 14th gene key, where the turtle sits. And I didn't plan it to end on the 22nd day or to go an extra half a day until the new moon, the day before Thanksgiving. But anyhow, it's real. That's my 2 cents. Yeah, I concur. The dream is real. Contemplate that.
Thanks, David. I'll follow up that. David, I wanted to mention I was on the DreamArc site yesterday and found my way into the discussion of the turtle, who I am still contemplating, but then found your videos of all of your ceremony and all of your ritual, and they're beautiful and very, very helpful to me as I try to just envision how I will set up my ritual, and just really appreciating the time that you took to put that out there. Thank you. And I still want to talk to you. I'll ping you soon. I want to hear more about your own contemplation with the turtle. I think that would be really helpful. And you offered that a month or so ago, so I'll ping you about that soon. Man, I guess I missed you guys 2 weeks ago. I've had a whirlwind month. Last time I was with you was a month ago, and at that time I had plans to leave in a few days for Colombia with my partner Jennifer for her 50th birthday trip. That was a dream trip that she had in mind that she wanted to do. And I had forgotten that Yamath was from Colombia, and he mentioned on the call, and which prompted me to message Yamath and say, hey, we've just realized we're supposed to go to Colombia for 2 weeks, and we've got all these places we want to go, and we've realized that it's rainy season down there. Is that something that we should be worried about? He was quick to respond that the rainy season has been particularly harsh this year, and there have been all kinds of roads washed out, and it might not be a good idea to attempt the trip that we were planning. So graced with the local intel from Yamath, we had a quick pivot, and within 24 hours, we completely scrapped our trip to Colombia and rerouted to Mexico, which was her backup. Jennifer has lived in Mexico a couple times, and she's got some favorite spots down there. So we scheduled a 2-week trip down there that included Isla Mujeres off of Cancun, a night in Mexico City, and then we kind of went up into the sacred towns of Amatlan and Tepoztlan, if any of y'all are familiar with those. Well, the short story is it was a really, really good trip, and then the last week we both caught COVID, and my throat got so swollen in catching COVID, sitting in this little spot in Tepoztlan, that I literally couldn't even get down water. So I was going on 3 days of no food, and starting to get badly dehydrated because my throat had gotten so swollen I couldn't even swallow water. And thank God Jennifer's fluent in Spanish, and we were able to go out into the streets and find, a doctor somewhere. And fairly quickly, the doctor was able to give me, some kind of I don't know what that was, but some kind of a shot that within 10 minutes addressed the swelling in my throat enough that I could drink water and take the pills that I needed to take to address just all kinds of different symptoms. And then within 24 hours, we were on a plane out of there. But it was pretty scary, but there were all kinds of connections with the gene keys going on. For one, in last month's DreamArc call, the card that I think Rosie picked was the tick, the number 9. And there was a very personal synchronicity that I experienced right in the moment of her picking that card that said, hey, pay attention to this card. And so I really, for about a week, was spending a lot of time contemplating tick. And one of the things that the tick messenger says is like, I pass along the sacred toxins and the bacteria that you need for such and such and such and such. And so I was really, really in the contemplation of the tick and this idea that, somehow something was going to be passed along to me pretty soon. And then it was literally, you know, a week and a half ago, as the 9th was coming in, key was coming in transit, which is the tick, that I caught COVID and that my throat swelled up. And the throat swelling, according to the doctor, was something more than just COVID. It was a bacterial infection connected with COVID. But, you know, all of that kind of fascinating to me. I would say we're still very much coming out of the tail end of COVID. All of the major symptoms have passed, but we're just still really, really fatigued and resting. And I think we're probably within a couple of days of being on the other side of it. Yeah, it's just and another thing I will share, as Jennifer and I were on our trip in Mexico, well before even COVID happened, while we were having a good trip in a lot of respects, particularly for the first 4 or 5 days, we've never spent so much time just being triggered by one another, by dogs barking, just the amount of stuff that was kicked up. And it became very much a shared reality, was this idea that the Venus sequence had completely rerouted our trip from Colombia to Mexico, in service to stuff that that Venus transmission is doing, you know, in our relationship. And I'll bring it to an end in saying that one of the, yeah, I playfully say the fallout of everything that we experienced in Mexico was it wasn't an easy trip for us. It wasn't an easy trip for our relationship. And we've landed back in the US in the sphere of attraction, where I am a 29.4. So right now I am just really sunk into the energy of half-heartedness. You know, and hoping to find my way this month into a deeper level of commitment. But I've never in my time with Jennifer, you know, we've been together 5 years, made a commitment to move to North Carolina together, you know, 6 months ago. But I'm just in an experience of more doubt about our long-term compatibility than I've ever had to be with before, and I'm hoping that that's just kind of that's par for the course in the half-heartedness aspect of the 29 in the sphere of attraction. And so this is feels like it's gonna be a big month for our relationship, and there's a lot for me to contemplate. I'll end with that. Thank you guys very much.
A thought that comes to mind, I've got the 29 also, is that sometimes the way out of half-heartedness is through commitment, not through half-heartedness. Just a thought.
I kind of wanted to throw out a question now that we're in the attraction sphere. There was a new video that they put out just prior to the Venus about the chemistry in relationships, especially primary relationships. And I'm a first line, and CJ is a 6th line, but he's still in the first stage of the 6th line, which is a 3. And I'm wondering, you know, being that this is all very new kind of information to me. Does anyone else have any more knowledge or experience about relationship energies with regard to the attraction field and the numbers? Well, 1/6 relationship is called an orbital relationships, and it's one of the rarest. It's where, two people are pretty much, in their own worlds, but occasionally those worlds connect. And when they connect, it's extremely powerful. Then they go off into their own orbits. But how does that work with someone who's the sixth line and not quite to the sixth line? It's going to be years till he's just at, I think he's 24. So he hasn't even come into the second stage of the sixth line. So that's something I've been trying to understand or wrap my head around. And if anybody has any knowledge about that, I'm certainly open to hear about it.
One word comes to mind, Tom: patience.
Trust seems to be the word that keeps coming up.
Also, I'll tell you a little mystery game that Richard Rugg created called the Delta that you're participating in. When you look at the partnerships in there, think about how the one is always by themselves. It's like it's purifying these two, like this pattern between the 3 and the 5, for instance, that I brought up when I was sharing. It's really powerful to really reflect back on it, but it's a contemplation that goes pretty deep, and sometimes it takes a lot of patience to get it. So
Sorry, Tom, I just got distracted trying to upload the tree reading, and then I just got the hit that I should just read it. Because the first part I read, it gave the word endurance, which is the word that has been pretty strong in my relationship since 2019, if not forever. This tree is naturally equipped to resist drought and is also the ancient shield maker's tree. It thus has the power to protect from death and injury and intervene between you and the worldly problems you fear, even those over a long, debilitating period. It is associated with the power of speech and language through its link with the wind. The long, flattened leaf stalks let the leaves grow in such a way that they move and ripple and make a noise with every gust or breeze. Poplars are commonly referred to as the whispering or talking trees, and in Irish Gaelic as Cron Crithaig, the quivering tree. Throughout the world and by many religions and cultures, the wind is regarded as being the messenger of the gods, or as carrying the still small voice of God. So drawing the white poplar card represents, through its quivering, your fears and doubts about the impossible odds you must overcome. But it also bears a shield by carrying to you a spiritual voice with words of guidance. To aid this determination, you need to develop until it can deal with your problems, however daunting or destructive they appear. The card speaks and encourages. In this way, it prevents death and the urge to give way under the sometimes daunting burden of worldly pressures. It is therefore of great assistance on the journey towards rebirth. If this card is drawn reversed, which it wasn't, the clamor of your fear is drowning out the voice in the wind. You need to listen to this voice and your own instincts more carefully and be willing to heed the messages they bring you. Okay, so that's all of somebody else's words that I'll share with you today. Just on a personal note, my fourth line attractor field came to me in a dream like about a year ago before the Pearl sequence. It wasn't specifically my attractor field, it was the fourth lines, which for me are in the attractor, the EQ, and the core wound. And the fourth lines were all just sort of singing to me. So maybe that's where the Quaking Aspen has its reminder in relationships. What is it they say? We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Always good when I'm dealing with my wife.
And I need to make a correction. That was our purpose spheres. In the attraction spheres, which creates the orbital relationship, I'm a 5th line. He's a 1st line.
I mean, honestly, when it comes to like an intellectual analysis of lines and relationships, for me personally, that is all completely out the door the minute the shit hits the fan. It's all just like time to breathe.
Yeah. I guess I'll go next. I have a hard time with the codes of chemistry. They don't really sit with me really well, and I think it's neat, but it feels a little kitschy to me. I'm just gonna say it honestly. I think it's like a cool marketing ploy in a way of like marketing it to like, ooh, like what chemistry do you like? You want to find your favorite, find the ultimate partner, that kind of thing that happens in astrology and stuff like that. So anyway, that's a very pessimistic view of mine, but it's just honest. Like I'm not super into the codes of chemistry. However, I am just open to them opening to me at some point, you know what I mean? And being like awakened to their magic and their beauty. But for me, they're definitely like really low on my contemplation. But that's just me personally, and I feel pretty grumpy when I say that. Like just saying that, like I feel like I'm a get off my lawn or something like that, So anyway, yeah, it's interesting. I feel my chart really alive. I feel so much wisdom pouring through my chart. And much less so with the attraction sphere. Like it's interesting. It's interesting for me to reflect on. I think that the natal moon is really powerful for me right now, and I'm feeling it really intensely. And the fact that it doesn't show up in the Gene Keys chart, I'm like, see if I don't know. It's a big question mark for me. Like, where is that? And so I'm just accepting, but I'm watching it. I'm really trying to feel into like what is alive for me, and the natal moon is really alive for me. And in astrology, most people know their sun sign, and then their moon sign, and then their rising, and then everything else is like down the wormhole. And to me, that Gemini moon is a huge part of my psyche. It's a huge part of my drive and who I am and how I know myself. And so for that to be absent, it's very odd to me. Just I guess I'm in an honest mood right now. I didn't know what I was going to share. And so the attraction sphere, it's like I loved Chris's story about, you know, just navigating between all of these different things. Compared to the sun, the moon is just flying around the planet, and so it moves, I think, every 2 hours through a line. And so I think it's you know, every 12 hours. I have that written down somewhere. I'll report back later on exactly what it is, because I think it's fascinating. It moves really quickly. And so if you are born in the morning versus born in the evening, almost nothing will change in your chart, but your attraction sphere will move drastically. And I don't know what the significance is of 88 days or 88 degrees beforehand, before your birth and this time in the womb, but the exact point that the moon was that changes so quickly, I don't know. I honestly don't feel as connected to it as almost all of my other spheres. And so then my question is to myself and to you now, because you're listening to me, question to myself, like, is there something that I'm blocking? You know, is there something here that, you know, I'm not letting the magnetism and letting the draw, the tide of this unconscious moon, like, pull me. So yeah, anyway, we'll see how it goes. For me, I definitely feel like I have a powerful attraction field. I live in a lot of synchronicity, and I trust that is the natural way. You know, I used to catch myself saying, oh my God, isn't that so weird? Like, this happened and then this happened and you couldn't even write this. It's like a movie, you know? But I've stopped saying how weird it is, because it's actually, that's the foundational principle of life, is all things are coordinated by a grand intelligence. I believe it wholeheartedly. And that everything, the fact that things are dialed in synchronistically, both positive and negative, you know, the attraction sphere pulls things in, but it pushes it out as well. It keeps things out of your path. It clears the waters in some ways too. But to me, that feels supernatural, not necessarily supernatural, but maybe it's all the same thing. Anyway, this isn't at all what I was going to talk about, but I guess it just feels good to like sit with you guys and yeah, just let it come out. I just had my best profile reading session last night. You know, because when I first became a guide, I didn't really feel comfortable just like telling people about themselves. You know, like I was like, I don't want to come off as preachy. I need more experience of this. And I've just decided it's okay. You've come far enough and long enough, and you aren't just doing it to, you're not faking it. Like, I really truly believe in the gene keys, and I can let my authentic transmission come through. So I've allowed myself to put myself out there a little bit more. And anyway, it was amazing. It was like, I just kept remembering people before numbers, which is like a powerful statement from Richard, that the chart's all confusing and there's a ton of numbers, and that's why everyone's confused. But what they really want is grounded, authentic reflection oftentimes. And so I didn't know, I was like real nervous beforehand, because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I just printed this girl's chart out like 2 hours ago. Well, no, I'm just going to show up and see what happens. And it was really natural. It was really beautiful. I left like high, you know what I mean? Like in touch with the cities, like really, I mean, it was like channeling. It was a powerful experience for her, which is great, because that's kind of what I'm looking for, to be in service. You know, I'm taking money and all of this stuff, but it was a really empowering and joyful kind of experience for me to feel like I was out of the way, and I was just chart, and I was trusting in the I Ching. I was trusting in the lines, trusting in the shadow, gift, and city, trusting in the pathways. You know, it was just like it went somewhere that I never thought it would. And so yeah, feels like some sort of you know, like a deep breath, like, okay, cool. Because my first chart reading before the guides program came around was a fucking disaster, dude. I had like all of the information, all of the headiest interconnection of the fractal holographic, like that's how I learn, is all I want all of the information to come into one symbol, and it like that's how I digest it. That's not how everyone digests it, and I learned that very quickly. And I probably scared this woman out of Gene Keys. You know what I mean? It's just like, whew. So anyway, yeah, just feeling that today's Maya's purpose. And I had to bring her to the doctor, and I fucking hate the doctor for myself, but this is my child. I can't like neglect my child and like be like, I don't like the doctor, so we're not going, you know. I show up and I go, and it just, I don't know, there's so much arrogance, so much like, I don't know. It's very tricky. She missed her vaccines from a year ago because she was sick that day, had COVID, ended up having croup. We didn't know it at the time. They wanted to give her like all these vaccines, and we just said, hey, she's sick right now, let's not do it. So then we come in today, they wanted to stick her with 5 vaccines, just all of the vaccines that she missed and all of these vaccines, plus the flu shot. And like every time I go in there, I say, listen, the only time that this girl is sick is after she gets her vaccines. She has a fever of 103, 104 for like 2 or 3 days. Can you chill? Does that disturb you or alarm you at all? And they say, no, it's totally normal. I'm just like, is it though? Like, I don't know. I'm not a fucking doctor. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just want to do the best for my fucking child that I possibly can. When she gets sick every single time, it freaks me out. I'm like, how about we do half of them now? I'll come back in 2 weeks and do half of them then. Like, I don't know. I really don't know. So anyway, we tried to give her 7 vaccines today. Fucking A, dude. And so I said, I will allow you to give her 2 vaccines today, period. You can fuck off. I will come back. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I'm not going to do it. And she's like, we do it all the time. And if you ask any questions and you're a crazy conspiracy theorist nut job, and it gets so uncomfortable, even as soon as I had raised one small question, she said, okay. She's like highly nervous person, said, okay, 50 times, like cutting me off. And oh God. So I'm just trying to like really trust and like really embody that patience, because, you know, I'm a fucking know-it-all for sure. And like, I have a lot of thoughts in my head, but I'm really coming to know that I don't know shit. Like, I really don't. And I just want to do what's best, you know? And I don't know what that is. But instinctually, I feel like jamming my baby with 7 vaccines all at one go is fucking insane, dude. And so then some part of me wants to tell him to fuck off. Like, literally, some part of me wants to like get so angry at the fucking bullshit that is being passed as big pharma. You have to, I mean, all of the arrogance and the oppression that I feel in those spaces just really makes me angry. But I try to be patient and not know everything and have my intolerance come out. You know, this 4th Gene Key's just written all over me, and I'm not intolerant to necessarily people's choices, but I'm intolerant to fucking systems that tell me what to do. Anyway, that was a good share. Thanks, guys. I feel so different than I did before I shared it. That really yeah, that felt good. So thanks all.
That was powerful, Jesse. And also just to underline, it's really so different when it's your kid, you know. And I'm gonna pause because I always love to hear your voice, Robert, and sometimes I have to invite you to speak, but you don't have to. I'm just poking you in the ribs.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's time for me to talk, so I'll talk. Yeah, yesterday I had a interesting experience. I was like walking down the road to the town hall to buy a train pass for one day, and all of a sudden, like one of my workmates, she runs towards me and she asks me, "Hey, can I borrow $20?" And I said no. And then yeah, at that point I'm like triggered shitless. Like this feeling of guilt and abandonment comes up, and obviously, she's like triggered too, and then she leaves, I leave, and then I get home and I'm like, shit. It's like, why am I being like so triggered by saying no? Like, what is it like trying to tell me? And yeah, it like came up, and if I said yes, I would be triggered a lot too. And I was like, it's like no matter what I do, I would end up being so triggered by this event. And so I like kept contemplating it, like this event, and like what came up to me after, I don't know, half an hour was that, like, I said no, and like this feeling of abandonment came up that, if I say no, she's not gonna like me and I'm gonna be abandoned. So that's like, that was, that scenario that came through my mind, and that's what happened in my world and with my like programs. And another scenario would be that I would give her the money, then I would be like anxious that she's not gonna be that she is not gonna give me the money back, and then I would be like angry at myself that I lent her the money. Then I would be like in a victim mode, being angry at her that she owes me the money, and blah blah. And so I was like, why are those scenarios like so painful, and why in a way, like, if I did the scenario that I lent her the money, why in a way I would be like trying to satisfy some program, why technically like many years ago, why it would be like the choice to do that, and why I didn't do it. And what came up to me is that it's like easier for me, let's say, to lend her the money and then hate myself for lending her the money than because then I can control hate towards myself for lending her the money, whereas I decided not to lend her the money, and then it's like a open space fear, then I cannot control if she's gonna like me in the future or not for not lending her the money. So I was like, damn, that's interesting that it's like making the step into the unknown is like terrifying thing for me sometimes. So that's kind of what came up yesterday. Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to riff off a little bit of Jesse's share. In the week of the 49th, which was dishonesty is the shadow and intimacy is the gift. Some of the biggest epiphany that I received out of it, it's like 2 days into the Gene Keys. I had it both in the Delta, and my purpose was being the victim of other people's dishonesty, my partner. And it was a couple of doozies. And I ended up having to go to the doctor to be checked for an STI and get the shots for those, even though I didn't have it, and the flu vaccine and the monkeypox vaccine and the third COVID shot. And it's like a couple days later, I was like flat out on the couch. It's like, why do I have no energy and no motivation? And my therapist goes, didn't you just get like 6 shots? And I'm like, oh, of course, these had some fucking effect on me. You know, so I can't even imagine having to make that choice and give a child so many of them at once. You know, that's, I commend you for your boundaries and taking care of her in an awesome way. So,
I was just gonna say in relation to that, because that, what Jesse, when you were sharing, Jesse, and you said at the end how much lighter you felt, it's like I really understand that with the 4th and the 49th gene key, where there's this intolerance and this reaction to these things, that to be able to just share them and voice them without somebody trying to fix you and tell you to think a different way or anything like that. I totally feel that. It's like, I just need to vent this out. I need to let this go. And because there are so many, there's so many things I noticed. So I was totally and then as I was sitting there, I was like, actually, I didn't fully appreciate my gift yesterday of landing in a breakout room with AI like that, because this was transcription AI. It would have listened to me. It wouldn't have judged me, or at least not now. Maybe a future AI might. But I'm like, I didn't take the full advantage of that. I could have had a beautiful vent session and somebody would have wondered what this transcription was about and who did it. But I just really, I really feel for that. It's like, there's that space to be able to just acknowledge these painful energies that we feel like this is his fucking kid he's talking about, and to be placed in that position. And so, yeah, I totally get that feeling of lightness afterwards, of just like, I just needed to feel the intolerance. I needed to voice that intolerance, that reaction. And, you know, some of artificial intelligence, Robert, artificial intelligence. Yeah. At least in this acronym. It might be another acronym for it somewhere else, but the one I'm referring to is that. And, you know, it's interesting actually, because I don't know if you guys have seen Sounds True, the company Sounds True. They've released a book that is written by AI teaching us about spirituality. And it comes to its own conclusion that it's all woo-woo. And I'm like, is all I am. It's like, now we're letting them write books on spirituality. And yeah, so I'm just an interesting space. I think I needed to let that piece off my chest.
Yeah, I'm glad that you
guess.
circled back to that, because that was such an interesting experience. Like, I was logged in by accident to the Zoom thing, and so I saw that you were in a room with AI, and then you texted me, and I was like, oh, crazy. And just like, what an interesting experience, just to say that. Like, I got put into a room with an artificial transcription bot and you work on the transcription team. Like, I don't know, like there's just, it was like pretty weird. And then, you know, of course, like the juggle game and all of that. I didn't mean to pull you out of your discussion with Richard. But
Yeah, that's funny. And Rosie was just as I got transferred to the other room, Rosie was just asking, well, there must be a reason that you're in
oh God.
space by yourself. And then I got flipped. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do another wormhole. See you later. Left her. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Well,
it was
it's an interesting topic right now, because I don't know if your feeds on Facebook are like mine, but there's a brand new app that's out now that is AI is creating imagery. You know, it's creating all sorts of stuff, and there's been people that are doing it where it's, you know, you put in commands and then they create, you know, this AI program creates art pieces around your commands. So a lot of people, there's some guides that are doing it. Stuff's really beautiful on like the elements of the hexagrams, and it's amazing stuff. It's really cool. But there's, you know, now there's like a selfie app where you put in 2 or 3 or 10 or however many selfies you want, allow it access to all of your photos that you've ever taken. Maybe that's part of it. But then it models you as like an elven princess and a space traveler and a Klimt style, you know, thing. And now there's like other art ones, like see yourself in these different things. And it's been really interesting. And I think there's some strangeness to it. There's also obviously some beauty. Anytime it happens virally and everyone does it, I'm like, oh God, here we go. There's some people think that this is totally evil and like a soulless, you know, soul crushing takeover of the human race, and other people just think it's fun. You know, I think as with all things, it's both and, you know, there's like a middle way, and it's not the end of humanity, but it is certainly the dawn of a new age. You know, it's an interesting place. I had a really strange experience, and I'll leave it here. Had a really strange experience of seeing someone post all of these images, and she was a friend from ages ago that like I had a very karmic connection with. As soon as we met, it was like, there you are. Wow. Finally, like I know you. Like we traveled lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes together. So when I saw these images of her on AI, and it was like literally from different worlds or different incarnations, like I had a visceral response where I was like, oh my God, like I recognized like these different facets of, anyway, it was probably the coolest experience I've had around it, but it's certainly an interesting one. And so anyway, AI is so hot right now.
Yeah, I noticed on Facebook a couple of days ago, I was changing my insurance, my Medicaid. Oh, was that the book or the app? I'm on the phone to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and on my Facebook comes up 4 different ads for health insurance and other choices. I'm like, how the fuck do they know I'm on the phone checking life insurance or my health insurance? It's like, that's some scary shit.
Yeah,
But
don't search on prostate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Such an interesting discussion. What comes to me is intent. You know, I mean, we all know that we're in the midst of changes, and some of these are being led or guided by this artificial intelligence that we've created. But in my own contemplation of my relationship with technology, I'm actually like there is a fear there. Like I actually own a membership to a startup company. I've owned it for 2.5 years now, which is AI marketing. And so I've been getting this sense like I don't need to reject it, but perhaps put in some dream arc images, invite some people into the contemplation, you know. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents there. I did want to share, you know, I mean, my wife and I went through many years ago the whole question about, you know, to vaccinate or not vaccinate a baby, because that's been around for a long time. And, you know, only you can decide what to do. You know, both of our girls survived it. It sounds weird to say it like that. Even the fact that we have a word now in our vocabulary to label a certain human as an anti-vaxxer is a little bit of a contemplation for me. But I wanted to share this experience because I'm living here with my grandson, my daughter, and my grandson has had these repeated, we're not sure if they're allergy related or whatever it is, that we've, you know, my wife and my daughter have been trying to sort of figure it out through diet and, you know, cut out dairy and whatnot. But he gets really stuffy, and then, you know, he'll be vomiting. It's been since Friday. He's been sick, and he's not, you know, hasn't been vomiting the last couple of days. But anyway, it sparked, let's go to the doctor. And so my daughter went to the doctor and actually connected with this great nurse practitioner who was an older woman and seemed sensible, and thought, you know, well, let's not jab him and test him with do blood tests right away. Let's see if this could be some kind of an obstruction. Send him in for an ultrasound first. And so, long story short, that was a couple days ago. They went for this ultrasound, and the technician said, "Oh, your nurse ordered the wrong test," and they wouldn't give it to her, but they made her sit there for an hour. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of changes that need to be, of course, we all know in the health industry, but even that I call it an industry, right? And my own personal experience, you know, having to put out $50,000 just to get in the door for a surgery that was a life-saving, you know, could be a life-saving surgery when I had pancreatic cancer was just ridiculous. You know? And I had insurance, like, give us your $50,000 and we'll cut you open. And yet the interesting experience for me was that it actually made me feel very much more open and tender to the allopathic physicians. And the surgeon that I had was just such a sweet man. And the nurses that I had, I mean, I had flowers everywhere in my room. And of course I was high on morphine, but, you know, that took a different turn than I expected. I was going to talk about the attractor sphere, but I'm going to pause there.
As David was reading out the tree earlier, I was just noticing is this like just our surnames and stuff in this place, because we've got the chestnut tree here, and then the ash down is a field of ash trees. But we've also got a parish and an abbey, which is like the Catholic in me is just tuned into. And then we got the Freeman, who's just beyond all of that. But it's just noticing this, like this, we're really in there in that kind of, it takes me right to Glastonbury Abbey with its many oak trees and different kinds of trees, and just like, it feels homely in that way.
Yeah, don't forget I am a wood key as well.
I was wondering what that, I was just going to ask you what that meant. So.
I have no idea what it means, but when I've tried to explain how to say it to my students, I always would write wood plus key. And my pen name is Pine Tree, so there you go.
And I just put in the Facebook group my story I recorded a couple of years ago about my vision quest and my tree story. If anybody is interested, I think Chris, you had commented on it, but it was for me, a life-changing story with the tree.
Yeah, I thought that was great sharing, and everybody should go see that. Just to comment on the doctors and everything, I think we're going to see all the systems kind of break down. And I think the physician system is breaking down slowly, and our government's breaking down, and all insurance is breaking down. So I think we're just living through this kind of continual breakdown. We'll see more weird things going on, and we've got to figure out, oh, now how do we navigate that? What makes sense now if these systems can't support us right?
Yeah, it really brings me to the thing that, I mean, I give everyone like the ability to be wrong, right? Like we all, no one knows everything. And that's my greatest problem with this specifically, is that arrogance that we know what is best. We know what is best for you and your child. And they have a shut the fuck up attitude. You know, there really is like, here's a pamphlet, educate yourself. There's nothing wrong here. There's no room for question. There's no room. That's all bullshit that you found on the internet, you know? And it's like, everything's peaceful and calm until you question. And I'm not saying no, I'm just saying, what do you think? Like, can I ask a question? And there's like this intense like defensiveness. And I think that happens when systems are crumbling, you know, and they don't want to admit that the 12 years of schooling that they went to were funded by big pharma in order to help sell big drugs. And that if the system changes, their whole education and everything that they've done has to change, much less any sort of guilt or looking backward on any missteps that they, or harms that they may have taken. So I have a lot of compassion there, except for the arrogance. That's really honestly, and maybe it's because that's my culture and it's something I'm working through, you know.
Well, even as you speak, my daughter just pulled up from a doctor's appointment. I'm going to go check on them in a few minutes, but that's exactly what she's been going through. Like, not only did she connect in a positive way with a nurse who said, let's try this, but then she got pushback from a technician, which my mother-in-law is actually a retired nurse, and that's completely illegal for them to make any sort of a diagnosis. But it was like this, I know better than you. So I'm gonna round this out with the image that I really have of where we're going with healing, which is, you know, in the future, I see all healing as being accomplished through light. And it's going to be, you know, through the color spectrum. I can't tell you how it's going to be. It's an abstract image, but it's also been predicted and it's in process. Like, we see technologies coming out, and yes, we have to be skeptical, you know, we have to be pragmatic, but you know, at the time I was, you know, told I had an average 6-month life expectancy, it was like, what do we got here in the world now, you know? And yet I had like 100 people, non-local healers, who were working on me in the non-physical realms. And I just like got this surge of healing from all different directions. And so there's something in me, you know, that's got that to learn from. And in relation to this, I was going to share around the attractor sphere, because I actually have combined or integrated my Chiron chart with my normal chart. Not only that, I have no clue about HD, but it was an HD person that connected me with the time. March 11th, 2011 was my Chiron return. And there was a discrepancy between that chart, when I put it into Gene Keys, and just 3 or 4 of the spheres were slightly different. So the reason I say that is my purpose sphere, I have 2 other options. So I'm contemplating the 12th and the 45th in addition to the 20th Gene Key. Really, really super interesting contemplation. And now in my attractor sphere, I have the, my normal sphere is the 22-4. And now I'm contemplating the 17. And the, what's the other one? I haven't even begun to contemplate this. And it's crazy to even hear myself speaking it, but the 25-4 as my unconscious moon. And this ties into what some of you were speaking of before when you were speaking of the 22nd Gene Key, because my 22-4 attractor field is now my life's work. So I think I better go shut the hell up and work on my transmutation. But I wanted to share that there's something going on here with this feeling of, like you brought it out, Chris, of really integrating other parts. And Jesse, when you said, oh, maybe you're not really feeling it or something, and it's like, what do I want to say? I mean, the moment that I be quiet and I breathe, I can feel it, and you can feel it too. It doesn't matter what number we give it, right? We're people, we're not numbers. So my hat's off to you.
I just contemplate all 64 for my attraction sphere now. It just makes it easy. I was just gonna say, I was just reflecting too on what you were sharing, Jesse, about the culture and because for me, now we're working through Venus and the attraction sphere and the culture, there's threads there weaving between those. If we've done it before, it's difficult not to see it. And so the arrogance that you come across, and I can't help it, you've got that 4th Gene Key, the sun is in the 4th Gene Key for you. And that one's all about asking questions. It's like it's your gift. And here you're meeting the arrogance of a community that's saying, no, you can't ask that questions. That's what I've noticed throughout this time as well, is with the 4th Gene Key purpose for me, is that to ask questions of anybody, suddenly you're automatically on the opposite side. There's that kind of, well, if you're not agreeing with me, then you must be the opposite. And it's like, no, I'm simply asking questions. And when I was 14, I was in an accident. I ended up going to a hospital, and thank God for allopathic medicine. It saved my life, right? They cut me open, and voila, I'm still here. I mean, for some that might be a problem, but for me, it's okay. And but one of the things that they left me with was, it's kind of coming back to this questions, is that I have a scar from underneath my belly button to the top of my sternum. And when I look down, it's a question mark because it goes around the belly button. So I have this giant question mark to remind me of my purpose. And it was given to me by an allopathic doctor who was considered a specialist in their genre and probably wouldn't have allowed me to question them if I'd actually questioned them. So I find it all so fascinating, because I've got my culture sphere is it's the vanity one. So there's a similarity there. It's like the know-it-all, coming across that know-it-all that just knows everything and cannot be challenged and thinks they're better. And so it's like, I see that again and again in my environment, just it kind of pressuring me in that space. But I just, I love that there is this, I love that there's a group here and we're allowed to have questions without it being, this is the definitive answer for everybody. Yeah, I think that was all I wanted to say in that moment on that. But I appreciate the space for this kind of thing, because I think I'm just relating to Jesse in the sense that this part of me that's wanted to question things has been shut down so often in the last couple of years, or automatically been made to be the enemy. And that's the last thing I want, is like, that 49th gift wants to resolve divisions. It doesn't want to, I don't want to create divisions. I don't want to provoke reactions in people anymore. I want to bridge those divisions and those divides. So yeah. Thank you for this space is what I'm saying for that.
So I used to be a process engineer for Seattle Cancer Care Alliance. So I was working with doctors and nurses on how to standardize their processes. And so you've got this tension between this person's dying of cancer. They need to ask questions. They might need 45 minutes. They might need an hour to get through their questions. They might need an hour just to cry in the doctor's room, right? And all the cancer doctors know this. The insurance companies don't know it. The hospital doesn't know it. Nope, we got to get turned. We got to get going here. Jesse, God damn it. 7 minutes is all you got if you ask questions. How can I fit within my 7 minutes? So there's such tension there. Yeah.
I was thinking, Jesse, that, those 12-year people going to school for 12 years will be coming to us Gene Key guides to find their life purpose before long.
I was just saying, I think
Nice.
that's why I pulled the 16th gene key earlier, because that's the polymath. We're talking about the experts that have gone so deep into a particular, domain, but they haven't got that breadth of understanding necessarily in other domains.
And many of them can't talk to normal people, like that's the trick of a lot of this, not just doctors now, but like specialists, people who are PhD and are scientists. They're trying to figure out how to manipulate, this or that or the other, whether it's technology. I mean, there are literally people who work at like in big tech just to be able to interpret from media and marketing to tech people, just because they literally speak in different languages, and I really think that specialization is I don't know, it's a real trap, and I do believe that this is the wisdom that and not just this system, but this type of wisdom, because it wraps around the source. Like this wisdom is connected to everything. It's a unified synthesis that isn't the only one that does it, but it holds the thing. It connects to the DNA, all the subtle bodies, all the mystery systems, like all of the prophetic stuff. There's a reason why we're all gathered around this. And I think you're right that when the systems crumble, people are going to need to know this. And even it's what David was talking about with AI. AI is not good or evil. It's how it's used and what does it serve. And so I had this vision years ago of figuring out, and I still haven't done it completely. I've tasted a little bit of it, what I call the mathematics of benevolence. And it's using fractals and holograms, and it's understanding the multidimensional kind of recursive loops that are part of vector mathematics. But regardless, without getting too nerdy into mathematics, it's understanding that everything is connected and it's actually unified, and that individualism is less efficient than collectivism. That if the service of the whole is Richard's words, or what I call the benefit of all, if you can tap that is a net gain for everyone involved, that it changes things. And so this gets into philosophy a little bit, and like alien theory, even like service to self is known as dark magic. Service to the whole, benefit of all, is known as white magic. It's as simple as that. And unfortunately, most of the capitalism and materialism that we are based in is survivalism. It's grown and evolved naturally out of survivalism, which is just inherently taking care of self. And most people don't realize that it's actually based in kind of a dark magic. It will lead you karmically towards slippery slopes where you get more goods, but less soul, less happiness. Whereas the opposite, that is so beautifully written into all the gene keys, all of your problems will dissolve. The only way to get out of the shadows is to make the shadows serve the gifts, serve the benefit of all. If you can bring your shadows, even the worst parts of yourself, into service, then you're on the gift, and pretty soon you're going to start popping through into the cities. Like, you're not going to be chasing your own tail. Like, it's a really powerful reminder. And so what I've been my greatest hope for AI, for technology, especially in the blockchain, which isn't just cryptocurrency, but it is like a whole new like web, is that if we can build the mathematics of benevolence so that that the fundamental purpose that all AI systems, all monetary systems is in service to the whole, it would transform the entire network. It would transform everything. And I think it's super revolutionary, but I don't know. It always seems to trigger the shit out of realists, people who say there's no fucking way, but I'm sticking to it. I think I haven't pulled it down to earth, but it's something that it feels at least worth talking about. So anyway, I'm talking a lot. I'm going to start up, I think.
There's a lot of energy in it. I just want to hold this up. So you probably can't see it, can you?
It looks like a mirror, or it's like a portal. You can see your tree behind you. It's really cool.
I'll read it to you. This is a token of a startup cryptocurrency that I own, based on unity, peace, love, abundance, freedom, and honor. So it's happening, brother.
I have a poem I wrote real quick, and then we can wrap it up. But it was based on, I couldn't light fire to a candle when I was getting in this creativity workshop that David brought up last week. And I was like, damn, I want to light my fire, because, I was getting this creativity workshop, and it's a candle that goes with the 41st gene key, the anticipation. And so I was a little pissed. And then Phil brought in standing in grass. And I was like, oh, it reminded me of standing in snow, in bare feet, outside in the cold. My brother locked me out the door, and I turned around and I walked up to the door and I punched it out, when I was like 8 years old. So I wrote this poem. It just came through. It said, I've had enough of this place I'm in, no fire, no flame to ignite my spark. The chaos in my belly, strong and deep, is but a seed that makes me weep. I open to life, I open to flow. I open to what is wanting to show. What is this feeling? What is this fear? It feels my life is starting from here. And that's the poem that came out. I was like, it just like came out. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty freaking profound. And then I signed it with a starfish. So the starfish is a 13th shadow of discord, which is in the ring of purity. So here I am purifying my shadows. Whatever. Anyway, I had to share that with you guys.
I just had to check what gene keys the moon was in while we've been on this call, and it started in the 45th gene key and it moved to the 12th. And I'm like, oh, well, I can feel the tone of the call now in terms of that. So purification for sure.
So that's my natal moon, is the 45. And I just moved into the first position in the Delta. And so I'm in that 12 right now. So that hits home. Thanks, Matthew.
Bingo.
Those are my two alternate purposes, the 45 and the 45.6 and the 12.1. I can't tell you why.
I like that.
I just wanted to interject that when I was sitting there, like coming out of this surgery, and pressing the morphine button every 5 minutes and wandering the halls of the ICU, I met this woman who, because there were a lot of people there that were dying from cancer for reals. I was just there for the dream show, I guess. She gifted me water from Lourdes. Like, what could be more magical? She gave me her water from Lourdes that somebody had brought her from France, the healing springs. So it's like you might say, George, you can't make this stuff up. Somebody's making it up, but not me. Maybe it's
I
an
like-
RI, a real intelligence.
Yeah, I wonder if she just opened her eyes.
I like how in Gene Keys, rather than alternate universes, we are now talking about alternate purposes. That I'm gonna quote you on that, David.
Well, blessings to
Okay.
you all.
You guys have a great day. And I just, this has been such a great call. I really appreciate it. I hope anybody who gets to the end viewing a 2-hour video is benefits as much as I have. And until next time.
Robert, I'll
My-
send you that invite in a few minutes.
Much
Thanks,
love,
guys.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
you
you.
guys are all welcome, of course, tomorrow at the full moon call too. If you didn't get the invitation,
Put
Yeah.
a link,
What time is that?
it's it'll be 9:30 in the morning PST. So it's on the Venus forum and the DreamArc forum too.
will you
I haven't
put
Try
a,
to
actually
make it.
made an email,
in,
but it's
Ben's-
always interesting.
I'll
put
see
a
you
link
tomorrow,
in the
David.
men's- put a link in the men's group page, would you, David? Because I always
Oh,
seem to
yeah.
find your stuff, but the time zone thing fucks me up.
Yeah. If you don't show up, it's fine too. That's part of my purpose, actually. Contemplation, the shadow of my purpose, the fly, the fear of missing out. It's like there's no way we can really miss out from anything if we're actually omnipresent beings in disguise, right? So
Yeah,
anyway,
Right.
that's
Tuned
my
into it
leaving
all.
comment. I'm really done.